Welcome to the Pickleball Recovery Podcast, where we highlight products and practices to help you feel better faster, so you can spend less time stiff, sore, and injured, and more time on the court doing what you love. This podcast is sponsored by Zamst. Zamst reinforces and protects athletes by providing premium technical products in the form of athletic braces and supports derived from innovative materials, designs, and manufacturing processes for the ankle, knee, elbow, and more. Find out more about these high-quality products built to prevent injury, improve performance, and ultimately help you spend more time on the court at www.zamst.us. and use the code PBR to save 15%. What's up? Welcome to another episode of Pickleball Recovery. I'm your host, Tim Ringgold. How you doing? Did you play any pickleball today? Hope so. Hope you got out there, even though it's like terrible weather around the U.S. at the time of this recording. Maybe you found a way. Did you dig deep? I've been on a little bit of a break. My mom had surgery last week, heart surgery, and she's doing very well. Thank you for asking. And I went out of state to kind of spend time with her, help her heal and recoup. And I left my paddle at home. Yep. I know you're proud of me. I know. What self-control. Well, I have been fighting just an absolute brush fire in my right shoulder, and my trainer and chiropractor, one of my chiropractors on my team, Dr. Jody Denise, who you've heard here on the pod recently, was just reading me the riot act. She's like, listen, we're not going to get ahead of this thing so long as you keep aggravating it. You just need some downtime. So it was a perfect opportunity to take a rest. It's getting better. Wow, what a surprise. This is a perfect segue into our conversation today, because today I interview Coach Ian Hutchinson from Down Under in Australia. And Hutch, as he likes to be called, is a longtime listener of the pod and has sent me frequent emails of support since the pod was released, which I really appreciate. Shared it with a lot of his students to help them. And, we had this honest conversation about, it was funny because my mom was having heart surgery. So we started talking about heart issues right off the gate. And it was like, wow, this is really actually useful, valuable information for everybody. So we kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, but I left it all in there, and I kind of chose to go down that road because as someone who works in healthcare, like understanding some basics about our heart, pretty important. So we kind of spend some time talking about the heart. But the other thing we talked about is how to optimize your time when you are injured. Are there things you can do aside from play? Are there things you can do to keep your game, and when you say your game, it's kind of a global thing, because there's mindset, there's skill set, there's conditioning, there's all kinds of things that go into, your hands, your eyes, your legs, your feet, your balance, your decision making, your knowledge base. There's so many things that go into your game. And if one part of you isn't working, does that mean you can't work on anything else? Well, Hutch is here to share how he's maximized and optimized injury time in the past. And it was just such good content and so good. I was just like, this is something that happens to everybody along the way. And this is a shout out to my buddy G, who is doing some serious recovery right now from a lifelong foot issue where he had to have surgery, and he just finally got out of his cast and he's into his boot. And, this comes for all of us at some point. So what can we do to optimize that time and not have FOMO just rule our whole experience? So, listen in, because this has either been you, it is you, or it will be you. Sorry, it's just the way it is. And so I'm really excited for you to benefit from this conversation as much as I did. So with that, let's just jump right in. So sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and I'll see you on the other side. Ian Hutchinson, welcome to Pickleball Recovery.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me. I'm quite a fair way from you right now.
Yeah, we were joking beforehand for those who are watching and listening, Ian and I are, well, I'm in Southern California. And where exactly are you?
I'm in Sydney, Australia, and to be exact, Newport Beach, Sydney, Australia, which I believe you also have a Newport Beach just near you.
We do. It's true. This joke never gets old for me, but since you are technically in the future, what's it like there? What is it like in the future?
Well, I'm just looking out the window. It's been a lovely day today, and particularly lovely because I did get on the pickleball court this morning and had a bit of a hit. So I'm ahead of you already in my pickleball today.
There you go. Yeah. Outstanding.
You're never going to catch up. You're never going to catch up, Tim.
Nope.
Always ahead
Try
of
as
you.
I might. You are always ahead. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Well, let's kind of catch people up on how we met and how we ended up coming to be here today. So, you are a mad pickleball addict like the rest of us in Down Under in Australia. And how did you find the Pickleball Recovery podcast?
Probably being diagnosed with OPD, which is, obsessive pickleball disorder. I'm just constantly was looking for what anywhere they could find anything about pickleball, anything that moved that was pickleball. And what I particularly loved, there's some great podcasts out there, great YouTube, all as you know, but I loved your theme of your pickleball podcast. And I went, oh my God, that is exactly how I'm feeling right now. That's exactly how many of my pickleball friends feel right now. Let me get onto this. And I think probably religiously, I have been listening to your podcast ever since. And I threw you out a line very early on and said, job well done, keep it up. So, and sooner or later, here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I remember you said back to me, it's a very lonely world in podcast world because it's all one-way traffic. You punching out podcasts and with no audience in front of you, so you don't know what's happening out here in the abyss. But here we are. Yeah. We're real life people benefiting from all your fun work. Yeah.
It makes me so happy to hear. And I think as a frustrated comic, the hardest part is telling jokes with no audience. And I think that's really the real issue for me with podcasts is there's just nobody laughing at the end of my jokes. So it's an odd world. But in all honesty, it was so meaningful to get that early email from you. It was just like, and it was so cool because getting an email from anybody from anywhere is cool. Getting an email from a pickleballer in Australia is cooler. Because there is very much a sense of American centrism in terms of like pickleball's exploding here in the States. And, most of the conversations are happening here, but at the same time, knowing that pickleball is expanding, exponentially throughout like the Pacific Rim and down under like wildfire. And like a buddy of mine recently has been giving clinics in Taiwan and in China. And then there was a tournament and then in Indonesia. And it's just like, this is so exciting that we're so far away, but we can connect on this mutual obsession. And then we can do it over podcast. We can do it over email. And now here we are on our computers having a chat on 2 different days of the week, where we're about to, nerd out some more and geek out some more. And it's just a fascinating thing that connects us. And I try to explain it like this to people. I say, listen, I can go anywhere, like for sure, I can go anywhere in the United States and there are friends on a pickleball court waiting for me. Yeah. We just haven't met yet. Yeah.
Well, there's friends in Australia waiting.
That's truly.
Yeah. Yeah, there are friends waiting for you here in Australia too, Tim.
Say it.
And
exactly.
I hope that when you got that email from me, you ran to your mummy and said, "Mummy, I do have a real job. See, I've now gone global."
I'm a global sensation.
Exactly.
I'm a legend in my own mind,
Phenomena.
people. That's all I need. That's it. All I need is just feed those flames right there. My wife is like rolling her eyes as she listens to this right now. She's like, "Oh God, don't help him, Ian. Don't help him." So let's. But there was also at the same time, like you resonated with the topics, and then you started sharing a little bit about your story, and I started resonating with your journey as well. And I was like, "Oh, this guy's really cool. He's got a really great story." And
well, we don't know. We don't know.
You
that
saw
yet.
yourself
Easy,
in
go
me.
easy.
Yeah. And then I saw myself in you in as you shared, particularly with the challenge of when you get an injury. And there are 3 types of people over 40 playing pickleball. There are people who have had an injury. There are people who are currently out with an injury. And there are people who are going to have an injury.
Yeah.
And the stats on over 40 and injuries is like unbelievable. I just read, so AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, I think is what it stands for. In my house, we're old enough to where my wife now gets that in the mail, which is hilarious. And on the back cover this month, there is a special added section, and it's on pickleball. And one of the stats, it was written by a doctor, and one of the stats was, if you're like 85% of pickleball injuries are people over 40. And I think the reality is that when you play pickleball, you're young at heart, but not in body. And I was having this conversation the other day, which is when you are switched on to focusing on a little green or yellow ball, your focus, it's so cognitively demanding to track the score, the rules, the play, right? The actual flow of the serve, the return, the third, the fourth, the fifth, your partner. It's so cognitively intense that the attention center of your brain just can't pay attention to any signals your body's trying to tell it at the same time. Like, I'm tired, or I'm overworked, or no more games. No. Like, you're too busy with pickleball on the brain, right? Pickleball brain is like this thing.
Yeah.
And so it's inevitable, truly, after 3.5 years in the sport, it's just inevitable that you're going to find yourself in one of those 3 categories. And so I think it's a really healthy conversation to talk about, like, what do you do when you're there? How do you optimize that? How do you create an opportunity, out of an adversity? And as you started to share your journey, it was like, oh, this guy's got a black belt in reframing, adversity. So I want you to kind of tell a little bit of backstory on, you as an athlete, before you came to pickle, what you went through, and then you discovered pickle, so kind of take us through that journey.
Yeah. I mean, just one step back. I mean, I would agree. I used to be a mad keen cyclist because I used to do Ironman triathlon. One of the key sayings for the cyclists were, there's 2 types of cyclists. There's those that have fallen and those that haven't fallen yet. And I think it's the same what you were saying with pickleball injuries, right? There are those that haven't been injured yet, and there are those that have been injured. So it's very much the same. I mean, look, my background was, when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I sort of tended to, I think sounds like a bit like you with sport, throw ourselves in obsessively to whatever we're doing. I started out with squash, obsessive 6 days a week. I then, still at school was coaching squash because I had a very much belief that, we learn, we need to teach what we most need to learn ourselves. So I did that. I then switched over when I was about 21, got into triathlon, which is another obsessive sport. I did sort of 3 Ironman triathlons. It was really interesting because so many people who get into triathlon are fit, but because they're obsessive, they're not necessarily healthy. Yeah. And I saw a lot of people who would be overtraining. Do you have the phrase FOMO over there, the fear of missing out? If I get injured or if I'm sick, if I take 3 days out, my competitor's going to be on the bike, swimming or running, and I'm going to drop back. So all these comparison levels start kicking in where we're comparing ourselves and our journey versus other people. And so we're constantly plagued by pushing. I then got chronic fatigue, and I was then out for a while. And then FOMO kicks in and I go, I'm going to lose all my fitness. Again, I started then teaching or coaching triathlon. Again, I teach what I most need to learn. And I did that for quite a few years, and it's really interesting because, cut to pickleball now, and there's a lot of themes that I can see from that where people are overplaying, not cross-training, not looking after their bodies, not looking after their minds, the fear of missing out, obsessive, compulsive, the whole bit, and it's just becoming this big addiction. So I kind of started out, jump in any time. I kind of started out within the squash journey, my triathlon journey, then I jumped, obviously into corporate life, family life. But my whole interest was around corporate performance and what makes people tick. I went and then did a graduate diploma in psychology, but I was really interested in sports psychology and performance psychology. And then kind of it's jumped to 2018, so kind of only 6 years ago. I've still got my obsession with my bikes. I've got 6 bikes. I'm going to the gym. I'm out being fit and healthy. I then, with a mate of mine, we then go for this trip and we decide to cycle from Amsterdam to Paris. So we go and do that. That's fantastic. We do a big cruise, it's called a bike and barge, hopping off the barge, cycling each day, sleeping on the barge. The barge moves up the locks. That was great. 6 months later, I feel like I'm really fit and healthy. I'm 55 now in 2018. And then boom, out of nowhere, I suddenly have a cardiac arrest. And I don't know the difference between cardiac arrest and a heart attack. Heart attack's a plumbing issue. Cardiac arrest is an electrical issue. It can happen to anyone, the fittest people. Oh. So in Australia, only 9% of people survive a cardiac arrest. So you've got to get onto it within minutes, whereas a heart attack, 80% of people survive because it's a plumbing issue. So I was really lucky. I was clinically dead for 18 minutes. I had my mate who I was cycling with at the time jump in. A runner came past who'd just done his CPR course. I was taken to hospital. I was in a coma, and then I was in hospital for 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, they put in an ICD, which is basically a pacemaker, an internal defibrillator. So that kind of has the thing that's my insurance policy now. And then I come out of hospital and then they get me on all these lame rehab exercises, like, the rubber band things. And here you've got to do 10 calf races 3 times a day, all this sort of stuff. And I'm totally frustrated. What do you think I am, an old man? Like I felt like I was fit and healthy, but then I forgot I'm 20, I'm not 21 anymore. So I had to have a bit of reality check. But the interesting thing for me was the mental side of it, because I saw so many people who come out of hospital, cardiac arrest, and they go, oh, my God, their whole life now they're walking on eggshells. Whereas my attitude, I think, was instead of post-traumatic stress, it was post-traumatic growth. So my view was, hey, brilliant. I died. I'm still here. Wow, for me, it was a bit like, those arcade games where you're racing around in racing cars and then you get an extra lap and it goes extended time. So for me, yes. It was like, I've been gifted this extended time. So let's make the best of it. So my mate and I realized that if it wasn't for CPR, I wouldn't be alive. I just wouldn't be. I got accidentally, or freak of nature, I accidentally got really good CPR because this guy ran past. I had 4 bystanders who all jumped in. This guy had just done a fresh course. My mate jumped in. Sadly, he drew the short straw and had to give me mouth to mouth. But my mate's wife, Robbie, said, "Don't worry." he's a really good kisser. I didn't know because I was clinically dead. So that's the good news for me. But we do joke I woke up in the morning coming out of a coma with quite a bit of pash rash. But anyway, if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for him and the bystanders, I wouldn't be here today. So we started up this foundation called CPR Friendly, and it's all about free education and helping people understand how to do CPR really quickly in 10 seconds, in 15 seconds, in 3 minutes. So again, It's extended time. What can I do to make a difference? How can I pay this forward? How can this not happen to as many people? Because I was really lucky. And then a couple of years later, we're cutting out of 2021, and I go, my partner and I, Katie, are going up to her mum and dad's place, and I drive past this park. Here's the familiar story for everyone. I drive past this park,
right,
and I look over, and there's these people, bonk, 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 yellow ball. What the hell is this? And I go to Katie's mum and dad's place, and they won't mind me saying this is a little boring. So I jump on my phone and start Googling pickleball. And within 3 days, I'm then back there playing, and you know the story from there, right? So
yep.
But the interesting thing, then I'm playing 4 or 5 times a week. Then the interesting thing is, within 3 months, I've pulled my calf muscle like about twice.
Bam.
And I'm out of action. I'm out of action for 6 weeks, and I go, oh, that's right, I'm not 21 anymore. We need to warm up. We need to warm down. We need to stretch. I think that's probably when I stumbled across Pickleball Recovery and your fantastic warm-up program. I took screenshots of it, put it on my phone. I've probably got it here. You doing all your exercises, including the crazy one that I can't do with the stepping.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And that's where it came from. And I'm going, okay, I've done my calf. I need to warm up now. So enter Tim Ringgold, and there we go. But then I pulled my calf muscle a couple more times, and I'm going, this is ridiculous. And then COVID kicks in. Let me pause there, because that's how I got to pickleball. So there's lots more to tell around the story, but that's where we are so far. That's like 3 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay. And I first of all, so many great things you just said in there that blew my mind. One is that a cardiac arrest and a heart attack are 2 different things.
Yeah.
I didn't know
One's
that.
I didn't know that. One's an electrical issue. Can happen to anyone. And this is where we were talking before about, a family member who's actually getting some surgery around an electrical issue.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it was. It's an electrical issue.
Yeah. And it can happen to anyone.
Whereas heart attack is plumbing, and it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're a soccer player.
That's really great.
You probably see on YouTube some of these soccer games. You see some of these soccer players go down. Some of them have got defibs like me. They go down, it goes off, they go boom, and they're back up playing again, because the defib has rebooted their heart, like rebooting your phone, and bang, it's back into rhythm, and away they go. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's actually happened to me on the pickleball court.
That is amazing.
Yeah. That's happened to me on the pickleball court 3 times. Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Okay. So kind of tell me one version of that, how that goes down. You're there you are. You're playing a game, and do you just feel faint? Do you black out? Like, what's going on?
Yes and yes. So with a cardiac arrest, you virtually just black out. You've got seconds. And when I was playing, and the last time this went off was September 2 years ago. I was playing in a semi-finals of a tournament. And we were the underdogs, and we were actually ahead. And suddenly, boom, I black out and I fall to the ground. This thing kicks in so quickly. Before I hit the ground, it booted me back. And it's a bit like getting kicked in the in the chest by a horse. And it's weirdly comforting because I go, oh, I just died for a second, but boom, good news is I'm back again. So, and a little bit dazed, but the bummer is I then can't drive. You're not allowed to drive in Australia for 6 months. So then we had to discuss whether or not I was going to, I was then going to discuss whether or not, we then discussed with my partner, who's a mate of mine, whether or not I was going to continue or not. But then we decided not to. And it's gone off a couple of times.
That's
it's gone off
very
once.
funny.
And it's gone off, might be funny for you. It's gone off once when my partner, Katie, wasn't around. And here's the pickleball addiction kick in. I didn't tell her because until much later, because I didn't want her to say you're not allowed to play pickleball anymore. How's that for OPD? Obsessive pickleball disorder.
That is so on brand for obsessive pickleball disorder right there. That is a symptom of the disease right there. That is like diagnostic criteria.
This is life. This is life and death stuff, you know. Would you prefer to die or not play pickleball? Yeah. It's a tough one. Oh my gosh. It's a tough one.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, I'm going to roll the dice for sure.
Well,
not play pickleball. What are you, crazy?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. My cardiologist said, well, look, you could play, I can't do a Sri Lankan accent, but he said, look, you could play competitive pickleball for the next year, but it's up to you. You're not going to be able to drive if it goes off again. So, or ever actually. He said, you may not be able to drive ever again because after I had all the heart surgeries and ablations and I was out for 16 months, I've only just come back the last 3 months. He said, if you play and it goes off again, this is what he originally said, you may not ever be able to drive again because we've maxed out your drugs and we've maxed out your surgery options. So for me to be able to drive again, you've got to be able to do something medically or surgically to improve the situation. So there's another pickleball dilemma for you. Yeah. Do you play and risk not being able to ever drive again?
Wow.
Yeah. Funny.
Hey, these are legitimate pickleball questions.
They're very common questions. So the interesting thing was, why did we worked out later why did I have a cardiac arrest? And I think it stemmed back to my Ironman triathlon days. So a combination of high intensity training, long periods. If you've got a virus that you don't know you've got, and apparently only 10% of the time do you know that you're actually carrying a virus, and potentially a genetic issue as well. All those things together can create the perfect storm to create scar tissue on the heart. And that's what my issue was. I've got had scar tissue on the heart, which was blocking the electrical currents. And as I got older, these dormant things then came to fruition. And in certain conditions, my heart went into electrical spasm, and it just wasn't firing in the right order. There's the electrical problem. Yeah.
There's the electrical problem. And in all honesty, this is not like one of those things where if you cut out sugar or you lose some weight, or you lower your cholesterol, like this is a different category, right? Because if it's an electrical issue, are there any lifestyle things you can do to improve the electrical functioning?
Except getting a scan and sometimes checking it out. What you're talking about, exercise, reducing sugar, all that sort of stuff will help reduce chances of heart attack, because it is a lifestyle plumbing issue. Yeah.
Fascinating. So now, is there anything that I can do? Like, for example, now that you've told me this story, I'm thinking, well, I loved how you said with Iron men and Iron women, how they're fit, but not necessarily healthy because of the obsessive nature of the overtraining and the chronic fatigue that they put their body states into because they don't understand recovery. Is there a scan? Well. Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. The interventions I have at tournaments on a regular basis. And it's what's funny is that Hutch, I work in addiction, and like it's all the same. It's all the same. The preoccupation, the planning, the play. The only difference is the shame after the fact. There's just no shame in pickleball. There's just pain.
No,
that's the only difference.
You can write it off.
Is there a test or anything?
Healthy addiction.
Healthy addiction. Yes. In fact, my very first coach was. Yeah. So here's my question to you: for a guy like me who's fit and moderately healthy, is there a test or something that I can do where I can go to my doctor and say, "Hey, listen, is there any way we can do any kind of testing or screening to see if I'm at risk for cardiac arrest? And if so, is there anything I can do about it other than hope and pray?"
Cardiac arrest is a trickier one than heart attack. I mean, you might look like the fittest and healthiest guy, but we hear about this the skinny fat people. They're skinny, but actually the insides they could have plaque in the arteries and all that sort of stuff. So you're going to be able to get tested and checked out for heart attack better than you are cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is a tricky one, but I would say first step, just always get. I was getting an annual heart check, but still cardiac arrest can't always get picked up in that situation. I would say what you can do though is get as many of your friends and family to know how to do CPR.
There you go.
Because CPR, defibrillators are the only thing that will reboot a heart that's had a sudden cardiac arrest.
Gotcha.
CPR, and we didn't know this either, CPR actually just sustains life until a defib comes. Yeah. Yep. Now, the good news is...
And here we call those AEDs.
AEDs, yeah, same here. But the good news is maybe you should move to Seattle, because Seattle's got holds the world record in the best survival rate of sudden cardiac arrest, because they've got 75%. That whole King County has got about 75% of people are CPR aware, CPR trained and friendly, and they've got a very high saturation of AEDs around the area as well. So their survival rate in that area is about 65%. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That gets me thinking right away that like public courts should have AEDs at them.
Well, here's the scary thing. This is certainly in Australia. I think it's probably in America as well. The average age for a sudden cardiac arrest is in the early 60s. What's the average age of a pickleball player? Same thing.
Ding, ding,
in my
ding,
pickle
ding.
bag, in my pickle bag, not for me, but because I want to try and maybe help pay it forward, I've got an AED in my pickleball bag. And actually, it's a really small. Actually, I can show you. Let me show you a quick.
Do it.
There's a demo. Yeah.
Get it.
Do you like interaction? Okay, this is a demo one. But you know how big AEDs are. You know how big they are on the wall and airports and stuff.
I have my BLS training as a clinician.
Oh, there you go. So that is an new Australian invention.
Tiny.
That is an AED. So what it is, pull it apart, bang, bang, and there you go. So it's so small, I can just put it in. Yeah, I've got it in my pickle bag. This is a demo. So $500 in Australia.
We should have those every tournament organizer should have that at the registration desk. 100%. It's almost like I carry a EpiPen in my bag. I carry Narcan. Like these are, emergency response tools that are portable and easy, and you can easily save a life.
Pickle juice. Yeah.
I carry pickle juice in my bag.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. That is a tournament saving device.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness though, like that's like, I have like, you can get portable oxygen now. They have these little cool little cans of O2, and one of our guests, Dr. Greg Song, who was on one of the early episodes here talking about compression boots, we were hanging out one day and he gave me one of these cans, and that was a huge benefit as well. These are easy first aid, first response things that we can carry in our bags. I carry everything else. Yeah. I might as well carry one of those. I mean, it would be amazing to have an AED on hand. Like, how great would that feel? Because like to your point, and I think this is important for anyone who hasn't been through the training, chest compressions do not bring someone back to consciousness like they do in Hollywood and in the movies. That is Hollywood. Nobody wakes up after you give them mouth to mouth. Like, it doesn't work that way. The AED is the only thing that is going to save that heart, or restart that heart, if you will. And you're basically just keeping blood flowing through the body until that arrives. And it may or may not be, you might or might not be, have a shockable rhythm. But if you do, that tool is the thing that's the lifesaver. So this is a really important topic, because I was at a tournament where someone dropped dead on the court.
Me too.
You know, their heart stopped, you know, and that was it. And so this is a very real thing that happens. And so it's interesting, just like having this conversation. Like, I hope everybody that's listening right now, I want you to just hear the opportunity for, like, in pickleball as a community, for safety. How can we take one easy small step to provide literally life-saving benefit? This is low-hanging fruit, everybody. This is as low-hanging fruit as downloading my free guide on how to warm up and cool down. Like, that's low-hanging fruit. Getting CPR friendly in terms of understanding how, you know, the nuts and bolts of it would probably take less time to understand than going through my full workout training. It's that much of an opportunity.
Look, the reason we started CPR friendly is because one of the barriers was people think, to learn CPR, it's boring. I've got to go and spend some money and do half a day or one day. So we say, look, instead of if you don't have the time or the money to at least get just CPR friendly, and if you go to cprfriendly.org. Our challenge was, we can teach you CPR in, funnily enough, 5 seconds. All right. There's a video on there that teaches you in 5 seconds, 15 seconds, 45 seconds, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, and 30 minutes. Depends how much you love your family and friends. Do the 30-minute one if you love them. If you're not too fussed, just do the 15-second one. Right. But
oh my gosh,
we try and make learning CPR fun. So there's Mikey the Bikey there, who teaches you CPR in 45 seconds as well. So it's really easy. I mean, I'll give away the 5-second training. The 5-second training is just ring 911, and they will coach you through everything you need to do. And 50% of people don't even do that. All right.
Wow.
That's the little spoiler alert for the 5-second training, but it grows from there, right? Yeah.
No, but that's a really important point, because I remember when I go through my BLS training, when they teach you and you arrive on the scene, what is the first thing you do? You point at someone standing by and you tell them to call 911. That is the first thing you do. So people forget that. Because they panic and they freeze, their nervous system just goes, I don't know what to do. And, you know, call 911. And not only will they walk you through the process, now, you know, help is on its way. And so that's brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. This is really great, because I had when we went through COVID, I work in healthcare, and I was a mandated vax. Like, I had to get the vaccine. I got it 3 times. I got COVID.
Me too.
Before the vaccine came out. And then I got COVID again after my third, like my booster. I got it a second time. So I had that spike protein running through my heart 5 different times, and I never got better. And it was noticeable in singles. I would play singles and my heart rate would spike and I couldn't get it to come back down and get under control. And I've never had asthma, but I can only imagine what it's like because I lost my ability to breathe. And there were 2 tournaments in particular where the refs almost called the match for fear of my.
He's going to throw in the towel for you.
They were, because I wasn't, because I'm a dumbass. And, I'm literally like, can't catch my breath. I'm wearing a heart rate monitor. I know my heart's spiking. It would go up to about 179 during singles. And then it would stay at like about 115 to 120 for the next 3 hours. Like it just would not, I could not recover. And it was because my heart had just been scarred from the disease and the cure, unfortunately. And it took some treatment that I went through with my chiropractor. Luckily, I've been on supplements since May of 2023 to heal my heart. And it's slowly getting better. We do these they're called heart sound. It's kind of like an EEG, but it's using sonic rather than electrical signal. These other professionals are worried about me. And then lo and behold, one of our senior pros dies on the court playing singles. And I realize, okay, all of us need to be paying attention to this muscle in our chest. Full stop.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm sorry, but I'm not that this podcast of yours has turned into life recovery, not pickleball recovery. But it's important. It's important, Tim. Come on, isn't it?
Yes.
You know,
100%.
This, if you're not alive, you can't play pickleball. So it's a simple calculation. What we've done in Australia
it's kind of
is
a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's as my doctor says. What does he say? That's a little inconvenient. If he's breaking some bad news to me, that's a little inconvenient. What we did in Australia, we a couple of months ago, I did a webinar for Pickleball Australia, and we invited anyone who was interested, and we were trying to get as many clubs as possible. I ran through all the stats. I ran through the, average age is in the early 60s, average age of a sudden cardiac arrest, average age of pickleball players, is in the early 60s. Hey, we need to pay a little more attention. The simplest thing we can all do is on our club websites is have a medical emergency page so people know what to do, where the local defibs are to their club, and what the steps are. So there's a lot of clubs now who have gone and put emergency medical pages on their websites and are now a lot more familiar. I mean, I did a coaching program for a club and we donated half the fees back for the club so they could buy themselves one of these. So,
oh, brilliant.
How do we play pickleball and save lives at the same time? So I think if nothing else, it'd be great for people just to be a bit more aware. CPR is really quick and easy to learn, particularly if you go to cprfriendly.org, and it's all free. And, just be aware, where is your local defib to your club? Once you learn CPR, now AEDs around the place, I'm a bit of a hunter for them. I go, where's the local one? Where's the closest one? Yeah. So I think that's a really important message from the podcast. So thanks, Tim. Are we getting? Do we need to talk about pickleball recovery and the mental side of that?
This has been, it's funny, like as we started before we got on the air, and I was like, well, let's just see where we go today, and we'll kind of, we'll just flow. And this was just there was such a hidden opportunity here to talk about, because, some episodes we might talk about the elbow, or some episodes I'm talking about the back, or I'm talking about your knees, right. Or something like that. I don't think I've had, or my brain with the concussion, right? Yeah. But I don't think we've had one where we've talked about the heart. And
there you go.
It's
perfect.
It's kind of at the heart of it all. Hey.
Yeah. So, it is.
So I think this is an important conversation to have, and just the education for me as someone who fancies himself as being, super active and in healthcare, for you to just break down that subtle but important difference between the two conditions, between cardiac arrest and heart attack. That immediately, it's like there's always something more to learn.
Yeah. Look, and I know you love singles, but I'd get checked out if I was you. I don't want this to be your last. Okay. How about skinny singles?
Yeah. I
love
learned
skinny singles.
I'll be honest. Coming from soccer, when I discovered pickle, I never got tired, and in terms of just like, I needed a run out, like a thoroughbred racehorse. Like I just need to run out my legs, and so I would just play these odd games in singles just to get a run out. And it was like, this feels good. I'm used to this. And then it was like, well, how am I going to break into the senior pro tour, not knowing anybody, play singles? Because then I don't need a partner and I can just go out and travel without knowing anybody. But it was always a means to an end. It was always a means to an end. And coming from not tennis, shout out to Rob Nunnery and his hashtag not tennis. With the influx of tennis players, that are continuing to come into pickle, and the game is evolving with the paddle. And I'm finding the gap, bigger and bigger, between me and the guys who used to swing at a ball as hard as they could for 30 years. And so I'm finding myself in this moment of like this existential crisis where it's like, I think I'm good. I think this might be the year this might be it, where I'm wrapping up on
they're
singles.
coming for us. They're coming for us, aren't they? I'm in the over 60s. And my theory is, I better get back into it quick, because they're all coming for us. And then in a couple of years, all the good over 50 guys will be in the 60s, So
yes, they will.
It's a tsunami of talent coming. We got to get in. We got to get in and get out, Tim, and work on it now.
So let's swing back. We'll circle back to the top of the conversation where we said there's three types of people, where there's people who are going to get injured, people who are currently injured, and people who have already been injured. And you and I count ourselves in that category. I took much of last year off because of my head injury. I took much of the year off before that because of a shoulder injury. And so there's, these are very real issues for us all. I loved when we were emailing back and forth, there was some like a framework that you developed for basically how to stay sane while injured. That was my takeaway, because it was like, if I can't play, I'm going to go crazy. So what can I do with my body and my mind and my game? How can I feel like I'm still connected, still learning, still engaging with pickleball while injured? So kind of take me through your journey and your discovery and what you did.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, I've always been one of these guys who tries to look for the silver lining. I got my calf injury. So what can I do? I'll learn about stretching and warm up and warm down from Tim. Then suddenly, the bigger issue, I'm now out of competitive pickleball for 16 months because I've got my 2 rounds of heart surgery. We don't know how they're going to go. And cardiologist goes, nah, just take it easy, slow recovery. So mentally, what's kicking in for me over this time is FOMO, fear of missing out. And everyone else around me who I was playing at that level is now going to be steaming ahead, with all their playing and all their ability. The good news is, because of my squash background, I've always been big on drilling. So we'll come back to that. When I had my cardiac arrest, instead of post-traumatic stress, I looked at post-traumatic growth. Oh, great. Well, what can I learn out of this? And how can I be better, or how can I contribute more back better? I've always been, instead of fixed mindset, we could talk about that forever. I'm a big believer in growth mindset. Well, I mightn't be naturally talented, but I'm willing to put in the work, and I'm willing to explore what are new areas. And I think that's probably why I've tried to coach every sport almost that I've been involved with, because I'm constantly trying to learn. And I'm also a big fan of focus on, and this is a big one, and this is kind of fundamental to the whole thing, focus on what you can control rather than focus on what you can't control. And I think so many people get bogged down on the pity party. I can't control that. I can't play this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And I had a skiing mate who, at the age of 11, he wanted to be the world's best skier, Australian guy. So he's got Buckleys anyway, right? But no, he's a very talented Australian skier. His whole quest was to be the best possible skier he could be. He then, a year later, found out he had cancer of the leg. He had to get his leg amputated. Now, there's not much bigger, problem for a skier than get your leg amputated. He said, no worries, I'm now going to become the world's best disabled skier. And he did. He won every single, his name's Michael Milton. He won every single major downhill slalom, giant slalom, you name it. He's won it all. At a point, not that this is a good measure of Australian skiers, but at one point he was the 15th best skier in Australia with one leg or two. So his mindset was, no worries. Let's focus on what we can control rather than what we can't control. And I think this is exactly the same when we go into injuries. So it's about reframing. So my reframe is, oh no, I can't. I can't play pickleball anymore. Everyone's going to pass me by. I'm going to be left behind. There's no point. I think my reframe was great. Here's a time to develop my blind spots. Here's a time for me to work on stuff in pickleball that others wouldn't have the time or luxury to do that. So step number one really was to reset my goals, take the pressure off, be more patient, and go, okay, what can I do? So I then started with, the foundation is I break up pickleball and the coaching into 4 areas, not in this order necessarily, but for me it was physical, psychological, technical, and tactical. So those 4 areas. So for me, it was, I needed to stabilize my physical and get my heart right, because that was just going to be foundational to my life. If I didn't have quality of life, then I couldn't build on that. And then I looked at the psychological aspect of it. So I started reading a whole bunch of books. There's a great book called Bounce. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's all about the myth of talent versus effort. By, I think it's Matthew Seard. Do you know the book?
I don't, but I talk about the myth of talent all the time in my keynotes.
Okay, great.
So I am a giant advocate for dispelling, the myth of talent. So I love that you just brought that up, and the book is called Bounce.
There's a bunch of books in that. There's the talent myth, and there's a bunch of books in that space. But my favorite is Bounce, and I reckon here's another one you'll know or have read called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Yep. So it's all about
stacking.
the 1%.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it's all about the 1%ers. So, here for me now is, hey, I'm not allowed to compete in pickleball, but what are all the 1%ers that I can explore and work on that are actually going to maybe help my game in areas that other people wouldn't consider. An example would be, I've got this coaching process, and we know that unforced errors are one of the biggest point losers of pickleball games. So I've got this process, unforced errors. What are the top 9 unforced errors? And I can tell you one of mine is ball tracking. So when we do an unforced error, we then go and do the walk of shame, and we mark down what was your unforced error. Ball tracking, footwork, shot selection, indecision, pop, whatever it might be, fatigue, whatever it might be. So one of mine's ball tracking. So then because I wasn't playing pickleball, I then went and saw a sports vision specialist, and I started working on my sports vision. Everything from Brock strings to virtual reality headsets. Awesome. To strobe glasses, to focus paddles, to whatever I could do. And because I'm coaching as well, I've got Pickleball Coaching International Level 2, I'm interested in being the laboratory for myself, so I can share stuff that I think is useful for other students and clients. Even juggling pickleballs for peripheral vision. Is a really interesting one. Yeah. In firefights, if you can learn how to juggle pickleballs really well, it really helps with your peripheral vision. So stuff like that. So I would really try and get in the nooks and crannies of things. I've now got a Whoop band, which I'm mucking around with. I don't know if you're familiar with Whoop.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I went and saw an exercise physiologist, and he, because as I'm getting older, I went in, and I don't know if you've had one on your show, but really interesting, because I went and he measured all my muscle groups in my whole body, and he said, he used to work for Tennis Australia, and he said, for what you're doing and what you're trying to do, your age, these muscle groups are out of whack percentage-wise with what you're trying to do. And so therefore he gave me a foundational program, and then he gave me a more performance program. And so that would help not only with performance, but also with longevity and not getting as many injuries. And funnily enough, 70% of the exercises he gave me were from the waist down. Actually, I've just come from seeing him today. I've got a shoulder injury, so maybe we can chat after the show. But I've got a shoulder injury, which he's helping me with at the moment. Got me back on the bands, would you believe, and all that sort of stuff.
There you
go. So there's a whole bunch of little nooks and crannies to explore, and then I got the opportunity to jump on YouTube. Start looking at Pickleball 360. Ben Johns's training online, Morgan Evans, all that sort of stuff. But I just had the time to do it, and I was trying to look at it under the banner of technical, physical, and psychological. So that's sort of all the stuff that I've been doing. Yeah, and it puts me back in control instead of going, oh, poor me. It's like, hey, I'm doing some secret weapons here that other people don't do. And then the other thing was I said drilling. So I was then able to get back into drilling, and I got a really good drilling group together, but they all knew my heart situation. So at any time I could go time out, and they were really cool with it. So
nice.
And what I've found is that we were able to focus on and then look, drilling in itself is an interesting conversation, because most people just get on, maybe gamify it. But I then started studying a Cirque du Soleil juggler who holds the world record for the amount of rings he can juggle, and he had a little course. He had a little course on how can you maximize your training. So then I started to get into the whole concept of training is one thing, but how do you maximize your training? So he was all about exceed your limits and trust your adaptation. So what we're trying to do in our drilling then was push ourselves beyond our limits for 70% of the session, and then embed for the 30% of the session. So, and we all agreed,
Nice.
look, we're going to fail a lot more, but we're trying to push ourselves beyond. And that was really I learned that from the juggler. So I wouldn't have had the time or inclination, because I would have been just out doing rec play with everyone else. And what I've found is the drilling I've kept, now that I'm getting back into my rec games with the same group from 18 months ago, I'm basically still at the same level as they are. So I don't need to worry about my fear of missing out. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that whenever I left, I had that fear of falling behind because people get better fast, right? But what I also noticed was a lot of people that I played with don't drill. They just play as a hobby, and they've reached a certain level of proficiency, and their game is they're on like cruising altitude. They're just, they like the way they're playing. It fits in their schedule. They've got a job, they got a family. And so they're here. And I have found that when I come back and I'm fresh and I'm not in pain and I'm practicing rather than playing, I really haven't fallen behind at all compared to what I feared I was going to. And that fear
I hear that a lot.
There's a great acronym. If you guys haven't heard it, I'm a sucker for an acronym, but fear is false evidence appearing real. And our mind will have a thought, and then we'll believe that thought to be true. But just because your mind has a thought doesn't mean it has any basis in evidence or reality. It's just that we tend to, we give our thoughts too much credibility. And so these thoughts, these fearful thoughts, they're just signals floating by in a moment. You don't have to grab them. You don't have to perseverate on them. You can just let that go because there's one coming right behind it. And much of the injury game is right between the ears. How do we keep ourselves feeling like we're moving forward to the degree we can in that moment? And that's what I love, where you're talking about, control what can you control, control the controllables.
Focus on what you can control rather than what you can't control. Yeah. Focus on what you can control rather than what you can't control.
For the brain.
And the thing is, we can control so much more than we think we can. And most of it is, as you said, mental. Yeah. Exactly.
100%. Well, that's really great. I love that there were some really great concrete ideas that people probably forget that are options for while you're out. What can you be doing to still feel connected with the sport? And so I love that you kind of rattled off boom, 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 all these different things, because that'll help people remember, oh yeah, there's stuff I can do. And so that's the thing to go focus on until you can do the next thing. And everyone will still be there when you get back. And they, you know how it is. Like, you might not play with somebody for 6 months, but it feels like nothing. Like one day you look and you're like, oh, Mike, oh my God, it's been a bit. And then you get right back on the court and you're playing in a game and it's like no time went by. So.
And I think having a break and time out is totally underestimated. I haven't really spoken to anyone who said, I've had a few weeks off and I've come back and, oh my God, I've slipped behind. They've come back fresher and more invigorated. So I think, again, back to the word recovery, I don't think we're giving ourselves enough recovery. And that's actually why I've just got my Whoop, because I'm trying to get the balance right between recovery and effort, just to make sure I am smooth sailing from here and in. Yep.
Absolutely. Just remember, everybody, when you exercise, that's the demolition time. You don't build muscle when you exercise. You build muscle when you rest. And you improve when you rest, not when you're exercising. Exercise is a destructive process to the body. It's a stressful process. It's causing damage. And you need the basically the equivalent amount of time to do the rebuild. And if you don't give yourself time to do the rebuild, all you're left with is the demolition. And if you keep doing that over time, the injury that you end up with will not be a surprise. But now at least we've given you some concrete things that you can do when you finally do get injured, because join us, it's bliss. So, Hutch, at this point, let's wrap it up for today. How do people follow you online? We talked about cprfriendly.org.
Yeah.
And then where else can people follow you?
Well, look, I mean, it's a long way to come for a pickleball lesson, but funnily enough, I just had some Americans from Maori who came over for the Australian Open who we were on the court for about 3 hours last week, and then they headed down to the Australian Open. So if you're ever in Sydney,
love it.
Look me up, the pickleballcoachingaustralia.com.au. And Tim, if you're ever in Australia, there's always a court and a smiling face here for you. So hopefully you can get down under at some stage. Be great to meet you face to face.
Likewise. Oh, indeed. Yeah. Outstanding. Hutch, thanks so much for joining us on Pickleball Recovery.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having us. It's been great catching up with you.
Yeah, likewise. Okay. Till next time, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Did you know there's one place on the web for all your recovery needs? It's at www.pickleballrecovery.com. You'll find all the products I personally use and recommend, along with exclusive discounts on many of them, as well as my blog where I help you make sense out of all the different products and practices out there to keep you moving and feeling better so you play better. After all, your body is the most expensive piece of equipment you own. Also, do you want to know the number one mistake picklers make that leads to increased pain, soreness, stiffness, and injury? Just head over to pickleballrecovery.com and download my free guide to playing with less pain and more enjoyment. Listen, pickleball makes us feel young at heart, but not young in body. So go download my free guide at www.pickleballrecovery.com. See you next time.